Right after the regular season wrapped up, we started a 12-team PPR mock draft, and we're going to talk to you about who we feel were biggest reaches, maybe went a little too soon. We've already talked about our favorite value picks and sleepers. Now let's talk about the picks that were maybe a little bit too soon, possible ADP busts. So I have a feeling there might be some running backs on here. Everybody loves our running backs a little too much. But Chris, let's start off. Who is your first pick that you identify as a possible reach?
Yeah, you're right. It's a running back. It's David Montgomery. He was taken with the 9th pick in the 3rd round. And look, this is probably where he's going to be drafted, right? Because of the finish he had to the season, he's likely going to be drafted at this point. But he has all the red flags that you do not want in an early round running back, irrespective of the schedule. We all know that he had a great, schedule as far as defenses versus running backs. He got one of the easiest, if not the easiest, running back schedule to finish the season. That's not even the most concerning part to me. The most concerning part to me that I haven't really heard anybody talking about is he did all or most of his damage after Tarek Cohen went down. If you look at him with and without Cohen in 2020, in games without Tarek Cohen, he had 19.2 expected fantasy points. In the games he played with Tarek Cohen, he only had 12.7 expected fantasy points because guess what? David Montgomery went from a 2-back between the tackles grinder to a guy who was actually kind of involved in the passing game because they didn't really have any other pass catching running backs. Tarek Cohen should be back for 2021. He's not a free agent. His injury wasn't, like a career ending type of injury. He should be back. And that's going to hurt Montgomery's value right there. Then, of course, you do have to take into account the schedule because he did have that incredibly amazing schedule when he did all of his damage. And if you look at what happened in the wild card game against the New Orleans Saints, one of the top run defenses in the NFL, he only had 31 yards and only averaged 2.6 yards per carry. So unless David Montgomery lucks into some incredibly easy running back schedule down the stretch again next year and Tarek Cohen gets injured next year again, I don't see any way he pays off this value. I doubt I'll be drafting David Montgomery anywhere in 2021.
Yeah, all really good points. I mean, there's just numerous red flags for this one. So, like you said, that schedule, it could not have possibly been softer down the stretch. He saved you maybe during the fantasy playoffs. He was one of the top running backs in all of fantasy, but it's not going to happen again. And plus, the main thing here is he had zero competition for touches. He was getting it all. Even if Cohen isn't back healthy, they're going to bring in somebody else, maybe a veteran free agent. It's not going to be 100% David Montgomery. So between that and the fact we don't know what this offense is going to look like next year, is Allen Robinson going to be back? Probably not. Is Mitch Trubisky going to be the quarterback next year? If he is that even a good thing? I mean, there's just way too many warning flags here. So I am definitely backing off of Montgomery. So I'm going to go with a similar scenario here. I like James Robinson as a player. I do not like his ADP. The early second round, I mean, he was a workhorse. But why was he a workhorse in Jacksonville? Because they literally had nobody else to give the ball to. Trading Leonard Fournette right before the season, his competition before the season, Ozigbo and Raquel Armstead, both ruled out because of injuries and because of COVID. Robinson, again, did great, but this also was a team that didn't really have a quarterback. They started 3 different guys this season, right? Between Minshew, who was good for a while, and then he wasn't, and then Mike Glennon, and then you got Jake Luton. It is just a mess. Look, they're going to be the Trevor Lawrence show next year. They're going to actually have a passing offense. They're going to bring in more receivers. It's not going to be all Robinson. They're going to bring in another running back. So that workload that you saw this year, it's just not going to happen again. Look, he's not a bad running back. He might deliver decent RB2 value, but there's no way he's going to deliver second round value.
Yeah, James Robinson is tough for me because on the one hand, you're talking about a running back who pretty much got every touch this year, which is extremely hard to find these days. But you brought up some good points. And look, we're going to have a new coaching staff, right? Doug Marrone is not there anymore. So we don't know how they're going to view it. Are they going to be more pass heavy? What type of offense are they going to run? So certainly there is some risk here for a guy in the early second round. He's one of those guys in best ball I'll probably draft some of just to have some exposure, but in like a season long league or something, I'll probably pass. And then another running back that I don't understand this at all, David Johnson. He went with the 11th pick in the 5th round. Wasn't he a 5th rounder this year in 2020? Why is he going to deliver in 2021 as a 5th rounder again? I don't get this. Why is he still a 5th rounder? Why isn't he dropped more? Let's think about this. A, he wasn't that explosive anyways in 2020, and now he's going to be a year older, more wear and tear on the tires. And B, it's looking more and more likely every day that Deshaun Watson is not going to be the starting quarterback for the Houston Texans, right? What started off as a rumor now is looking pretty serious. Like he might demand a trade from the Texans. So we could be looking at a team, without a starting quarterback or without an elite starting quarterback, that's for sure. Already was a, not a great spot for a running back to be. We could be looking at a bottom 5 offense here in the NFL with a running back who already lacks explosiveness, not the same guy we saw, a few years ago. I don't get this at all. I mean, yeah, is he going to get some touch? Is he going to get touches? Is he going to get volume? Sure. But what's the upside here? There really isn't any. I'd way rather draft one of the wide receivers in the 5th round than take a running back like David Johnson.
Yeah. So, I mean, the hard truth, sorry to any Texan fans out there, but it's going to take at least a year, if not more, to kind of rebuild all the damage that Bill O'Brien did. And if Deshaun Watson does get traded, I want no part of this offense, to be honest. And let's not forget the guy who traded for David Johnson, he's not there anymore. This is going to be another situation, a whole new coaching staff. They're not tied to David Johnson. If he flops, or, if they just decide he's not the guy, he's not going to be the centerpiece of that offense. All right, let's go to another position. How about wide receiver? We've been fading this guy all year. Chris and I, we talk about this as start sit videos every week during the season. And we've been telling you for the whole second half, avoid Tyler Lockett. We were pretty much on point all season long because he did nothing really ever since week 3. First 3 weeks of the season, he was one of the top receivers in all of fantasy. Since week 3, he only had 2 other times that he was even a top 25 fantasy wide receiver for PPR. He was basically unstartable, not start worthy for the majority of the season. And Pete Carroll has just come out after their recent loss, disappointing loss in the playoffs, to say they need to run the ball more. Yeah, no kidding. Okay, so they're going to run the ball more. DK Metcalf is now the main guy there for sure. He's going to take another step forward. Tyler Lockett keeps taking steps back. I just feel like the 5th round is too soon for a guy that's so inconsistent. Sure, he'll give you a couple of big games a year, but there's other receivers I can think of that could get several rounds later that could do the exact same thing.
Yeah, and people are going to sell themselves on the fact that he had 100 catches, he had all this targets. His numbers were very similar to DK Metcalf. But like you said, fantasy football is not a season-long game. It's a weekly game, and you got to look what he did on a weekly basis. Most of his numbers came in a few games. The rest of the games, he was not very good, not what you want, especially out of, like you said, a 5th round wide receiver. So don't be fooled by his season-long numbers. Look at what he did on a weekly basis. Pass on him here. There's much better options. And then I'm done picking on running backs. I'm going to pick on a tight end, and that was Robert Tonyan. Now, he went in the 7th round, but the reason why I think he's a ADP bust is he was the 5th tight end picked in this draft. So, of course, the first 3 were Kelsey, Kittle, and Waller, then Mark Andrews, and then Robert Tonyan. I get that he was good, especially like in the second half of the season, but we're talking about a tight end who's very touchdown dependent, right? He's not one of those guys that was catching 6, 7, 8 passes a game, racking up the yardage. Very touchdown dependent. It's easy to sell yourself and say, well, he's got Aaron Rodgers. He can catch touchdowns, but Aaron Rodgers had a 9.1 touchdown rate. That is not sustainable. Josh Allen had a 6.5 touchdown rate, and he finished 5th. 9.1 is off the charts. That's like what Patrick Mahomes did the year he threw 50 touchdowns. We know he's not going to do that again. He's going to regress in the touchdown department, and Robert Tonyan is going to be one of the guys who, takes a hit when it comes to touchdowns. So if he's not catching 10 plus touchdowns in 2021 and he's not getting the receptions or the yardage, I don't know how he pays off tight end 5 value. That's crazy to me. I think there's at least 3 or 4 other tight ends I would draft before I would draft Robert Tonyan. So I don't necessarily hate taking a tight end in the 7th. It's more the tight end that was taken in the 7th round.
Yeah, I mean, anytime a player is mostly dependent on touchdowns for their scoring, you have to be wary because that it takes a step back. And Rodgers is definitely going to take a step back no matter how great he is. That number is just not sustainable. So definitely agree there. All right, and then let's finish with the running back. Zach Moss pretty much proved that he was not fantasy relevant this year. He averaged less than 50 total yards per game. Oh, he could score some touchdowns being in that offense. He scored 4 touchdowns all year. Okay, so this is a case where Josh Allen being so good with his legs is going to steal touchdowns from the running back. This is a strict committee between him and Singletary. They kind of eat into each other's value. And this is a team that really did not need to run the ball that much with the running backs. And so Moss he didn't really look explosive at any point. He didn't really stake claim to a starting job. There's really just not much upsides to shoot for here. I know in this mock, because we're doing it very early, obviously, talking about January, we're not dealing with rookies yet because we don't know where the rookie is going to go. But I could still think of several backup running backs that have more upside that I'd rather take. AJ Dillon went after Zach Moss. I don't see how that's possible. So again, Moss to me kind of proved that there's just really not a lot to look forward to, even if he somehow did get the starting job.
Yeah, I totally agree. I don't understand the fascination with Zach Moss other than he was a rookie running back. When I'm drafting running backs at this point of the draft, I want guys who have that potential upside like you talked about. So I would rather take a guy like Latavius Murray or, like you said, AJ Dillon, who maybe don't have much week-to-week value, when everybody's healthy. But when somebody goes down, like when Alvin Alvin Kamara goes down, Latavius Murray is instantly, an every week must play running back where it doesn't matter what happens to Devin Singletary. Zach Moss is just going to be Zach Moss. He's never going to be more than that. And we know this offense revolves around Josh Allen in the passing game as it should. So I totally agree. Just no upside here. I'd rather chase somebody with massive upside than a guy like Zach Moss who's just so like blah.
Yeah. And that's the thing, it's all about value. Obviously, anytime you draft, it's all about value. Here's some of the guys that we think maybe just weren't worth a pick. Hit us up with a comment. Let us know what you think. Who are some other players that maybe you're just going way too early in 2021, or maybe disagree with some of our picks? Either way, hit us up, hit that subscribe button. We definitely would appreciate it. Thanks for watching and good luck in 2021.